Our last session is Understanding LGBTQ plus Families and Relationships. This was originally scheduled to be presented by Kim Sims, but she unfortunately had a family emergency. In her stead, we are happy to welcome Luce Remy. Luce is Vice President of Public Policy at Family Equality, the leading national organization advancing equality for current and future LGBTQ plus families. She leads efforts to shape policies that strengthen and protections of families nationwide, including LGBTQ plus inclusive family recognition and creation laws, child welfare reforms, and family inclusive education initiatives. Drawing on deep expertise in policy, law, and advocacy, Luce is dedicated to advancing understanding of family diversity and creating systems that empower all families to thrive. It's great to have you here, and the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you for having me. I hope everyone is doing well. So we will start. I should say Kim regrets that she can't be here and I'm looking forward to filling Kim's shoes. Let's start by, I think we're gonna start with slide 1, and we have a kickoff question. Sorry, Tiffany, will you guys be running the slides, or will I?
If you have the slides available, or we can go ahead and do that as well.
Would you mind doing that?
Yes, give me one moment, I'll pull those slides up.
Sorry, thank you.
Honey, I have them. So if you'll just give me a moment.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry, everyone, talk among yourselves. The question is actually, I'll just put it out there, both in the chat and in conversation. How confident do you feel about your understanding of LGBTQ plus family structures? Not that confident, slightly confident, somewhat confident, very confident, extremely confident. So I'm going to put that in the chat. And if you all would just, we can have a little discussion there. Please feel free to answer that question. Thank you. So here we go. As I said, Kim regrets that she can't go in the chat. Yeah, and I honestly will say, I only ever say, as someone who's been leading family equality public policy work, I only say somewhat confident because I feel like every day I learn something new about how humans can create their families, how they can structure their families. So no matter where you fall on this scale, I'm hoping that the session today will help give you the information that is practical and relevant to you and allows you to better understand LGBTQ families. In the next 55 minutes, we will go over terminology. We will go over who family equality is. We will talk about how you can show up and some of the issues and concerns that LGBTQI plus families face. We will also talk about defining families. So if I could ask, we'll go to, slide 2.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, great. And then we'll go to slide 3. All right. So who am I and who is family equality? So family equality is one of the oldest national LGBTQ plus groups. We were formed in 1979 as part of a convening of gay fathers at the Gay Lesbian March in Washington in October 1979. The group continued to meet and officially formed the Gay Fathers Coalition. And while the Gay Fathers Coalition began largely as a group of gay LGBT plus dads with children from former marriages with women, by the mid-80s, membership had increased, and we found that they were using other methods of reproduction as the number of LGBTQ plus people having their families through adoption, surrogacy, assisted reproduction, and other methods. The Gay Fathers Coalition responded to this by shifting and changing its name to the Gay Lesbian Parents Coalition, GLPCI, in 1986. And for 10 years, the organization kept going. We became the Family Pride Coalition. And then that included anyone under the LGBTQ family umbrella. So family equality is really, I like to say, as a three-legged stool. We do both policy, we do advocacy, community, and education. So our policy work began in the mid-90s with local and coalition-based work. And then that followed, our team focused on pushing back on the Defense of Marriage Acts and fighting anti-LGBTQ adoption and foster care bills. By the 2000s, our organization had become sort of a national force in the policy sphere and changed its name twice, to the Family Equality Coalition in 2007, and then in 2019 to Family Equality. Family Equality is known for its signature event, which I recommend to everyone, Family Week. Family Week takes place each summer in Provincetown, Massachusetts, and it's the largest gathering of LGBTQ plus families in the world. Most recent average was just over 600 families who attended a week-long gathering of community engagement, connection, education, resources, and lots of joy. Next slide.
Well,
Sorry.
all right, now I'm just getting the hang of this.
I wish I could control it for you. Sorry.
There we go.
So what does family equality do? As I said, I like to think of it as a three-legged stool. We could also call it a good four-legged stool. So we advocate for LGBTQ plus families who wish, and those who wish to form them. We are a community of parents, children, grandparents, grandchildren that reaches across the United States. And for 45 years, we've raised our voices and supported fairness for families. So our policy team advocates at both the federal and state level for LGBTQ plus families who wish to form them. We also educate and provide resources and programming regarding LGBTQ plus paths to forming and sustaining their families. We use storytelling and amicus briefs to change hearts and minds, as well as laws and policies. And then we build community by connecting families virtually and in person at events around the country. So that is who family equality is. And our mission is all about family, all about joy. And that's kind of what leads me to being in this space. So I'm going to ask for slide 5 and what leads you guys to be into this space. One of the things, as we said, this session is about educating you regarding how to understand LGBTQ families and relationships. And one of the first ways to do that is terminology, because language shapes how we see and respect each other and families. And so by understanding the different and diverse ways LGBTQ people use language to describe themselves, we can create a space where every family structure and caregiving role is recognized, valued and affirmed. So you're going to see a long list here of family structures, and I'm going to go through them sort of quickly, but talk about them. So LGBTQ plus family. What do I mean when I say that? A family where one or more members identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or other marginalized sexual orientation. We've got same-sex parents or same-gender parents. Parents who share the same gender identity. Queer parents, a broad inclusive term that some families use to self-identify. We've got chosen family, a close supportive relationship formed outside of biological or legal ties, often vital to LGBTQ plus individuals. Blended family, a family that brings together children and parents from different previous relationships. Single LGBTQ plus parents, an LGBTQ plus individual raising a child or children on their own. And we talk about parenting and caregiving, non-biological parents. And I will pause when I say this. Parenting and caregiving, often I think in the context of how you are understanding and building relationships with LGBTQ plus families, understanding parenting and caregiving roles is one of the most essential things to that. And there can be some lack of clarity in our terms. So I'm glad we're able to talk about it. So non-biological parent, a parent who does not share a genetic relationship with their child, but may be legally adoptive or social parent. Gestational parent or birth parent, the person who gives birth to the child and gives birth to the child. Adoptive parent, a parent who legally adopts a child. Foster parent, an adult who provides temporary care for children in the foster system. Co-parent, co-parenting is raising children together outside of a romantic partnership. This can be LGBTQ or mixed orientation arrangements. So that I think is some of the clear terms, and I'm glad to be able to provide these definitions to you. Slide 6. So you think the terminology would end. I like, as some people say, LGBTQ, the alphabet mafia, or LGBTQ, as one of my friends said. The terms mean the alphabet oftentimes means we need to a lot of terminology, but that also terminology is also help clarifies things for people. And so I don't think you should be overwhelmed by it. Just know that it's really aims to add to conversation and allow people to understand the complexity, but also the joy that comes with being in these families. So what we're going to talk about, the next one is reproductive and legal pathways. So donor conception. Donor conception is when sperm, egg, or embryos are donated for assisted reproduction, which is a part, and then there is surrogacy. Surrogacy is when a gestational carrier, i.e. the person who carries a child, becomes pregnant and gives birth to a child for the intended parents. Second parent adoption or co-parent adoption. It's a legal process that allows a non-biological parent to adopt their partner's child. Parentage recognition, a lot of what Family Equality does in our policy team. Parentage recognition is the legal acknowledgement of a person's parental rights, regardless of biology. And we move into another category, which is gender identity terms relevant to families. So we've got transgender parent. That is a parent whose gender identity differs from their sex assigned at birth. Non-binary parent, a parent whose gender identity is outside of the male and female binary. Inclusive parenting language are words like inclusive parenting language. Words like parent, caregiver, guardian are considered inclusive parenting language because instead of only mother and father, because they do not identify based on gender binary and allow for non-binary individuals to be recognized as parents. Pronouns, words used to refer to someone, i.e. she, her, he, him, they, them, z, zer. These pronouns can gender or non-gender someone. Terminology for children and youth. LGBTQ youth. Those are children or young people who identify as LGBTQ. Children of LGBTQ plus youth, otherwise known as collagers, as we say, because of the organization Collage that was founded. Kids who have one or more LGBTQ plus parent, whether by birth, adoption, fostering, or chosen family. Affirming environment. What do we mean when we say that term? That is a supportive space where a child's family and where the child's identity and the family's identity are respected and celebrated. So all of these terms, it can feel a little bit overwhelming, but please understand all these terms are there to remind us that there's no single way to build or define a family and to allow us to be specific when necessary about the type of family and the context of the family we live in. It's about honoring the words that people use for themselves, because that is a powerful step towards inclusion, visibility, and belonging. Next slide. So this is a fun one. I'm going to ask them to play a video that talks about one family's journey. I believe we have that video. So I happen to have met Nancy and her amazing wife and their son, and he is now like, I think he's about college age, and he is that tall, and he's one of the most lovely young men you will ever meet. I ran into him in the fall, last fall, and I just cannot say enough about that family. And honestly, their journey is the reason why Family Equality is here, to make sure that no one has to feel like they have to sneak out of a state, or that they are not parents when they are. Sorry, I'm not gonna get emotional. So now we'll go to the next slide, which is a question for you. How do you define family? I'm gonna ask you to please drop your definition into the chat. So what am I seeing? Oh, don't be shy. How do you define family? Please. People who love one another unconditionally. The people I choose to spend my life with. I like that. Individuals in either biological or chosen that love and support each other. Yeah. Um, I like that, with nothing but love. Yeah, yeah. Family is who you want to spend time with. The people who love and support you. Togetherness to the end of time. Ooh, I like that. My people. Chosen people in your life. People who love and support each other. Yeah. These are some great, great. Emotional safety. Yes, so important. Individuals who support and love each other. Yeah. So true. Family, biological, adoptive, and created. Supportive. Chosen people who love and support you unconditionally. Yeah. These are all some great definitions. If we go to the next slide, I will be able to give you this definition. Honestly, I will say this definition of family is pretty much the reason I applied for my job at Family Equality. So I love this definition all the time. I will tell you all the time. Individuals who come together, providing each other with love, support, belonging. Some families you come from, some you form yourself, and some are chosen along the way. I read that and I was like, I want to be part of an organization. I know these people. And I can honestly say that every day we work and live that viewpoint on family. So if you ever want the most inclusive definition, that is one to go with. And so I will ask you to go to the next slide. So we're going from all of that joy, that overwhelming sort of openness and welcoming of our definition, into what is the realities of LGBTQ plus parenting. And here are some stats for you. So LGBTQ plus parents are like so remarkable, and they are stepping up at rates that are unusual in this country. They continue to face significant barriers. So same-sex couples are 7 times more likely to foster and or adopt. There are 14 states currently that permit state licensed pardon me. There are 14 states currently that permit state licensed child welfare agencies to refuse to place or provide services to children and families. So the children and the families, including LGBTQ plus people and same-sex couples, if doing so conflicts with their religious beliefs. 35% of the LGBTQ population lives in states which have no explicit protections against discrimination in adoption based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Think about that. 35% of us are living in states where we can be discriminated against in adoption based on sexual orientation or gender identity. That's a lot of LGBTQ plus people, and that's a lot of states. 16 states and 4 territories, there are no explicit protections against discrimination in foster care based on sexual orientation and gender identity. And that lack of protection also applies to the kids themselves. They don't have protections from discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So that is kind of a stark reality when you think about what family and caregiving for young children should be. We'll move on to the next slide. So here are some other stats for you about the realities of parenting. And these are the first set of slides were provided us from the Movement Advancement Project. If you're ever looking for information about statistical information about the United States and LGBTQ plus individuals and families, the Movement Advancement Project, shorthand MAP, is a great organization to look at. They have some great slides and some great information. In this one, we'll talk about some other stats, and that comes from the Williams Institute. And the Williams Institute says that 18% of LGBTQ plus people, approximately or roughly 2.57 million adults, are parenting children currently under the age of 18. And that 14% of same-sex couples, almost 1 in 5 married same-sex couples, are parenting minors in their homes. So think about that. Approximately 5 million children are currently being raised by LGBTQ parents, including 2 million who live in LGBTQ single parent households. So there's so many different ways so many children that are have or are connected to LGBTQ plus individuals in their definition of family. About 30% of LGBTQ plus parents are not legally recognized or unsure about their legal status as parents or guardians for at least one child. Think about that. They are not legally recognized or they're unsure about their legal status. So these realities make it clear that love and commitment are not the barriers. It's policies and prejudice. And so by advancing protections and challenging discriminations, we ensure that every child has an opportunity to grow up in a safe, supportive, and loving home, including those built by LGBTQ plus parents. We're going to go to the next slide. So the next slide, we're going to talk about what are some of the barriers within the definition, within the term LGBTQ. We include also the term, there's a T, which is trans, and then non-binary is included in the plus. So here are some concerns and areas where trans and non-binary families face some challenges. So there are some additional considerations when we talk specifically about transgender and non-binary parents and families. Although trans families can and do have so many overlapping experiences with cisgender, gay, lesbian, and other types of queer families, there's often a different or additional legal, social, medical situations that come up. Some of those are legal recognitions and gender rights. So you're going to find increased scrutiny of legal documents, which affect birth certificates, parental designation forms. You're going to see it in healthcare. They may or may not have access to trans competent healthcare. It can be challenging. Many face increased bias with pregnancy, with getting access to assisted reproduction, with making appointments. Many families have to navigate medical transitions in the process of being a family. So they've got HRT, surgery, fertility preservation, and being trans or non-binary creates implications or questions about their ability to access those things. We've also got social and institutional. There is disclosure of, there's disclosure and safety considerations. That disclosure of their trans or non-binary parents can affect the relationships within communities and with schools. It can lead to complexities when forms are gendered and have legal implications, and they often lack gender inclusive language. And it's something I want to point out in this is oftentimes when we talk about both the legal, healthcare, and social, within that, it isn't necessarily always that objectively that it is that just being trans or non-binary causes these problems. What it is that others within those institutions, legal institutions, healthcare, society, feel the right to interrogate a transgender or non-binary individual's connections. When society sees something they don't understand, they therefore feel the right they have to pause and interrogate and question, and in a spirit of sort of denying them access to services rather than trying to be inclusive and bring them in. So we'll go to the next slide. So taking a closer look at trans families and schools. So schools play a critical role in shaping every one of us and how we feel about belonging and opportunity. But for many trans students and families, they remain a space of exclusion and harm. From administrative policies to peer interactions, barriers often prevent trans youth and their parents and trans parents from being fully affirmed and included. So administratively, schools often lack inclusive policies that affirm trans students and families. They may refuse to use chosen pronouns and names or provide access to bathrooms, locker rooms that align with the student's gender. There may be social exclusion. Trans students and parents often face harassment from peers or are excluded from full participation in gendered school activities, sports, dances, teams, committees. Restrictions. Okay, the federal Title IX protections were expanded. Expanded protections for gender identity, sexual orientation were rolled back in 2025. And many state level policies have been enacted that are attempting to enact discrimination and discriminatory practices, such as the Don't Say Gay or trans laws. As protections are rolled back and discriminatory laws spread, The need for advocacy for trans inclusive schools has never been greater, and every student and family deserves the right to feel safe, respected, supported in their educational journey, because we as a society are built upon the fact that everyone gets to participate and everyone is educated to be an educated and effective member of our society. So, moving on to the next slide. Now, faced with all of that, the stats about us, the stats about particular experiences our trans and non-binary siblings and families are facing, how do you take action? So, creating change doesn't always require grand gestures. Often it's small, everyday actions that make the biggest difference. By affirming identities, using inclusive language, showing up as allies, we build safer, more supportive spaces where every trans and non-binary student family can thrive. So, how do you do that? Affirm trans identities. Use correct names, pronouns for trans and non-binary students, parents, and caregivers. I know that sounds simple, but I know that sounds really simple, but truly it can really significantly reduce depression and the harm risks of youth. And when in doubt, ask. Use inclusive language. Say things like grown-ups or caregivers, avoid mom and dad. Normalize talking about different family types at home. Like every family is different, which is cool. Attend school board meetings. Show up as an ally at the school board meeting is a powerful way to take action. Local politics and decisions have a big consequences on your neighbors, on your friends. And just a few voices, your single voice can have a big impact. You are a member of your community. How you speak up, what you speak up for influences the people around you and can influence the policies your community puts forward. So speak up, correct misgendering, anti-trans language from other parents, teachers, and students. If you're not trans, support trans people, back them up by listening when they share their experiences. Educate yourself on how you can support and get involved. Each of us has the power to push back against exclusion and create real change. When we speak up, show up, stand alongside our trans students and families, we're not just being allies, we're building a community rooted in safety, dignity, and integrity. And one thing I want to say about all this, try not to shame yourself or shame others when you're trying to be inclusive. While we want to call people out, we don't want to shame them. Shame, especially when they don't get things right. Shame is not a way to unlearn bias. Compassion for yourself and for others, when it is combined with a genuine curiosity and kindness, is a way of welcoming people into community. So think about it this way. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to be curious, open to learning, and open to teaching others in a compassionate and kind way. We're going to go to the next slide. So in your role, where do you think you could make the biggest impact supporting LGBTQ plus families? I'm going to pause for a couple of minutes and please drop your ideas into the chat. I know that the programs aspect, how other people say that they can show up, teaches us about who we need to reach out to and the different opportunities we need to create. Wow, some of these are really good. I hope other people are looking at them as well and thinking about whether or not these are spaces that they could show up. Oh, I like that about offering a safe space in your office. Yes, that's a great one. And church is truly, yeah, church is great. Through advocacy, educating yourself. Yes, we cannot, we'll never stress enough how much educating yourself, listening, affirming, teaching patience. Yeah, I always say approach things from a space of curiosity. Advocacy, yes. Great. So these are some great ideas. Please keep putting them in the chat as I'm talking. You can help advance equity for LGBT plus families by shaping more inclusive policies. And here's some additional ways. You can expand access to resources, fostering affirming environments, raising awareness, challenging stigma, supporting children and youth, ensuring representation and visibility, strengthening community partnerships, consciously thinking about and including the needs and perspectives of LGBTQ plus families in how you engage with society and systems in every aspect of your life is really what we're talking about. It's just the act of thinking about it, not just what you think or how your family is experiencing things. When something happens to you, ask yourself, well, what would be different if I were a trans or non-binary family, if we were LGBTQ, if we had a disability, if we were black or brown. That consciously thinking about it and including that perspective is how you can have some of the biggest impact, and particularly when supporting LGBTQ plus families. We can go to the next slide. So, what are 3 things you can do right now to support LGBTQ plus families? Because I must admit, I know it's like, well, okay, this is great information, Luce, but what can I do today? Like, how do I get out there and do the thing? So you can stay informed and share the truth. Get your information from experts with a deep knowledge of this work. So family equality, other movement organizations. You want stats on LGBTQ plus individuals and families, go to the Movement Advancement Project. If you want to know about studies that found about LGBTQ plus individuals and families, go to the Williams Institute. You can talk to GLSEN if you want to know about the experience of LGBTQ plus youth. You can go to Advocate for Trans Equality if you want to know the experience about trans individuals. There's so many experts out there. And if you're not interested in going to websites, you can definitely go to their social media. They all have, Instagram pages, TikToks, and they are talking about all the issues. You can also tell your story. Your story has the power to create real and lasting change in the world. By sharing your joy and challenges, you help all of us change hearts and minds across the country. Show fellow LGBTQ plus families that they are not alone by pointing out how they are like you or different, or how you are experiencing similar things, or how they are experiencing things. They are not alone. Offer insights into the experience of LGBTQ plus families for future generations. Talk about what you've learned, the information that's been passed on to you, and pass it on to others. And then, of course, support the work. Volunteer your time. Donate to organizations doing the work that supports LGBTQ plus families. Family equality, that supports LGBTQ plus family equality. So stay engaged in this work. So I'm going to go to the next slide. And that is questions from the chat. We got a good amount of time. I hope to be able to answer some of your questions. So
Great. So we
ahead.
have a question here about how do you see the role of chosen families evolving in advocacy work and community building?
I think I can answer that in 2 ways. I think that if you're asking about it in the notion, well, okay, my policy head goes one way, but I would say in sort of community advancement, I would say I think it's essential. Chosen family is oftentimes historically was how LGBTQ individuals actually got family, because oftentimes historically there was a lot of stigma. People were rejected by their families and therefore had no one, so they created them. And so it has been so important that I think societally recognizing that even if you're not LGBTQ, chosen family is a really important thing. And I think that changes the environment, because it says to people, family isn't defined by biology or marriage. It's defined by, a certain set of agreements about community and love and compassion. And in that moves away from one sort of definition and allows us all, the families that we've chosen, to be considered families.
Awesome. We have a real question here from Margaret, and Margaret says, do you think advocacy is possible in this political environment?
Ooh, I love that you asked that, Margaret. My response is that advocacy in this political environment is compulsory. Um, because without advocacy, without people going to both advocacy in a community space, advocacy in the political sense, without that, those who are pushing a particular political agenda that isn't inclusive, that isn't welcoming, will think that they are right and that all of society agrees with them. So advocates like me, advocates like you, going out and saying, this is why this policy is bad. This is what I'm asking you to do this thing in my school, in our county, in our community, in our church, is important. That's all advocacy. And we have to be out there as much as we can saying that there is a different way to do things. Otherwise, they'll think they're right. And if they think they're right, they'll feel emboldened to do more and worse. So I think it is, when I say compulsory, I think it's required. It is absolutely essential that we keep doing it. I didn't get into this work because I thought I would win. I got into this work because I thought it had to be done, and I wanted to be one of the people who was doing it.
Awesome. Awesome. In terms of some of the schoolwork, there's a question as far as providers, a lot of us here are medical providers. What are the most impactful actions we can take to advocate for inclusive environments in school systems for the youth?
I think I think that there's two things. One, knowing what your school in the school context, what are your school district and your state policies around LGBTQI youth, gender, and people of color. Just know what they are. Know what those are. Some people assume that certain things have passed or certain things are away. But if you know the rules and requirements better than your principal, better than members of, other members of staff, that means you can advocate for all of the marginalized communities. So I think first thing is knowing the rules. Second thing is showing up in a way that your values of inclusivity, of compassion are clearly visible. You may be in a state or in a space or in a county where they have very restrictive, they have very sort of anti-LGBTQ plus policies. But if you as yourself show up as an ally, you create that your help, your office, your person, the table you're sitting at is a safe space for young people, for the families, for the individuals. People will still come to you and talk to you about your issues. And if at the same time you know what the policies are, you'll then also be able to provide them with solutions about how to get the services they need from within the system.
Great. We have another question here from Patricia. How do you find local information on advocacy organizations, etc.?
So, it's a great question. So if you were looking specifically on LGBTQ advocacy and issues, the first places I would tell you to go if you want it to be super local there's an organization called Centerlink. Centerlink is an organization of LGBTQ Q plus community centers and organizations across the country. On Centerlink, if nothing else, you can literally go on there and click on your state and look to see where is there a community center near you. So that for the community center part of it. If you want to know how to get involved that way, from a community engagement way, you'll find out the local one. Centerlink, from contacting your local community center, you can definitely talk to their programs team, their community outreach team, who will tell you if they're not the closest one to you, what other smaller groups there are. Facebook is also great. Looking up Facebook groups and community organizations that way. I would say also, if you're looking for community advocacy for more like policies and changing rules, there is organization called Equality Federation. They are a federation of all the LGBTQ plus state level advocacy groups. So if you want to know what is the state or advocacy organization that works with your state legislature that's pushing policies that are affirming, you can go to Equality Federation's website, and then they'll list the ones that in your state that they work with. So those are 3 different ways. And honestly, if you're just really looking super local, I really would recommend Centerlink, and I would recommend Facebook. And honestly, and you also recommend reaching out to organizations like Family Equality. We're always happy enough, our programs team to respond to all of the inquiries that come in. We're always happy to tell you, oh, here's an organization we know of. And yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Another question here is, how can allies prepare themselves to be effective advocate in spaces like school board meetings?
So there are multiple ways. Yes. The ways to do that are to, one, if you want to go to a school meeting, if you want to go to your school board, your school probably has a website and probably has a very clear list of when its meetings are. They're probably so look at the school. Your school website, they will tell you when school meetings are. They will tell you there's usually at some point, I think often, like, what is the code of conduct? How is the meeting organized? And know what the issues are. So one of the things I tell people, if you want to know how to be an advocate, pay attention to every email that comes out from your school about when meetings are and when they're discussing policies, when they're going to make changes, because they generally are legally required to disclose them. So that's the first thing, is knowing that. Second thing is, honestly, one of the things Family Equality does, our head of education has been very active in working with community groups around teaching people how to give testimony at a school board meeting, how to give testimony or how to tell your story in an effective way at a community meeting. So I would say, first, look it up, make sure you're following what's going on. Second, once you find out about an issue, think about it, think about how to tell your story in a way that relates your personal situation or the situation of people you know to the policy at hand. Coming in with stats is also great. Using stats from like the Movement Advancement Project is great, but talking in a personal sense, particularly when it's in your local community, your school board, your school meeting, is a great way, because people are generally really compassionate at people, and they don't like being mean or discriminatory to someone that they view as part of their community, and you are part of your community. And if you can talk about it in a personal way and how it affects you or how it affects the people you love, people are more likely to have compassion for it and really think about what they're pushing forward. I hope that answers your question.
That's great. That was really thoughtful. There's kind of a follow-up to that. And what makes a personal story most effective when in kind of those settings?
What makes a personal story most effective in those settings is when you can kind of do the 1 + 1 = 2 math of the story. And also when people can really imagine themselves in the story. So it's talking about the individual in the context where they seem as relatable as possible, where they seem like your neighbor, or like their father, their mother, their son, their daughter, their child, their grandparent, their caregiver, and then showing how you are impacted by a policy. Like, literally, there's me plus the policy equals this outcome. And then show the impact, talk about the impact of that outcome on your daily life, your sense of self. I also say, talking about, particularly in the context of LGBTQ plus youth and families, talking about how it made you feel. How it made you feel as a person, whether it made you feel less than, whether it made you feel scared, talking about feeling isolated, excluded. Those things are really impactful, because we often treat policies as if they're neutral and they're common sense, and that the only impact they're going to have is like simple order and just making things normal. But when we talk about the emotional, the social, the psychological, the interpersonal impact of them, that makes them really 3-dimensional. And it's not just a simple administrative change. It is literally a life change that they are trying to push onto someone in a very negative way.
Right. And then maybe here's we have a different question, which is, what gives you the most hope right now about the future of LGBTQ plus families and recognition in society?
Young people, I've got 2 answers. The first is young people, young Gen Zers who are at increasing numbers saying, like, I think it's, I'm not going to misquote the stat, but are increasingly identifying as LGBTQ. I feel like it's somewhere between like 20, like a significant percent, probably somewhere around 25% of them are identifying LGBTQ. Please don't quote me if I get that wrong. I will check and I will kick myself. But there are more and more of them are coming out and they are saying that they are LGBTQ. And a lot of them are like, they are not, can't imagine a world where they can't do all the things. So they give me hope because when I talk to them, they look at me and go, I want to do this. So why can't I? What do you mean there's a policy? How can I change it? They're so proactive about trying to change and trying to build the world they want that it makes me feel, well, a little young inside and want to help them. I feel like the like crotchety old person in a room sometimes being like, okay, let me explain to you how a bill becomes a law. Let me explain to you how a school board works. And they're like, I don't care about Robert's Rules of Order. I just want to change. So their passion keeps me really hopeful. And the other thing that keeps me really hopeful is that we've always been here. LGBTQ plus people have been creating and sustaining families since time immemorial. We may not have had the society may have not had a name for us. Society may have been completely accepting of us. Society may have completely rejected us, but we were always here. We have survived. We have found a way to thrive. And the fact that we have always been here and have found a way to thrive means we're going to be here tomorrow and we're going to be here forever. So I'm hopeful because I know we can outlast anything.
Oh, that was beautiful. I think history is so important. Are there any suggestions in terms of historical information, whether it be books or documentaries or things that people can look at just to get more history and understanding of the history of LGBTQ plus families?
Yes. Oh my God. So there are I'm blanking off the top of my head, but there's some great documentaries out there about the path to marriage. I actually there's some great books if you want, but they're super like about it. But there's some great documentaries on how we got marriage equality. I think there's one on Jim Obergefell and his story, particularly around the Obergefell decision and the ability to get marriage equality. There are actually Netflix, I believe, did recently. I'm blanking on the name. A great docuseries talking about LGBTQ plus families in small, rural, Midwestern, Southern communities and talking about how they are showing up in that way. And it's a great documentary series. The movie about Harvey Milk is great. Oh my God. There was recently a movie about Bayard Rustin. So good. Highly recommend it. And it's great. He's a civil rights icon, but he was also a queer man and talking about his place in history and understanding how he came to be and his nonviolent struggle and how important he was is great. There are some great documentaries about a lot of the LGBTQ activists who led to a lot of the things. Some great documentaries on the Stonewall riots and Martha P. Johnson. I'd recommend starting there.
Awesome. Wow, what an incredible list of documentaries. I know folks in the chat are looking for some of those names. The Netflix documentary, is that The Freedom to Marry?
No, it's the one about like our we're here. I will Google it right now, but it came out I think in 2023 or 2024 about small towns. Series. I love that I'm literally Googling it right now.
It's the best way to get things right.
And so I will find that for you. But it was great. In America. It was so there's one okay. No, it was in America and it was Netflix. Why am I not finding this? I will find it, but because okay, where it literally was from 2023. I feel so bad. I was like, I love that things don't show up when you want them to.
Is it We Live Here, the Midwest?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. That is exactly what it is.
Awesome.
The name. I was gonna butcher it. So We Live Here. Such a great one. Yeah, Times of Harvey Milk. Yes. We live here. Yes, that one. Such a great one.
Awesome.
And I think that one, to me, one of the things that it talks about is a great cross section of families, but they aren't, and it's a great cross section of family creation journeys as well. So it's not just the assumption that it's not just the lesbian moms with the Subaru, it's the two queer dads who go through surrogacy. It's a blended family. There's so many different journeys that are in there. Also, I'd recommend there's some really interesting podcasts that have shown up from
Okay.
Individuals who oftentimes are late in life, queer individuals who have blended families coming out of very different backgrounds, oftentimes, sometimes religious, sometimes just, smaller communities. Some great podcasts out there. If you are a person who likes podcasts like me, those are great ones to go to.
Awesome. Wow, we appreciate it. And like just this beautiful list of things to look into and to continue educating ourselves is just huge.
Yeah.
And I think we're all probably going to get busy this weekend.
Yeah. There's always so much to read, so much to listen to, so much to do. And honestly, I will just say my closing thing is to tell people that it's my big mantra now. Don't just be an ally, be an accomplice. So allies
Mm.
tend to like say, oh, yay, I support you. But accomplice is standing next to me in the jail cell or is with me on the front lines, is equally has skin in the game. And I think in this moment when we're worried about the political climate, being an accomplice where you're like, I'm putting myself at risk, if not in front of you, to protect marginalized communities is really important.
Well, thank you, Luce, so much. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. We all appreciate you being here. And yeah, thank you for all the information.
Thank you for having me. And I wish everyone a great rest of their week and a great accomplished journey.
Awesome. Awesome.